There's nothing we can do. You're just going to have to manage it with pills. So take these pills and learn to live with the pain. Or it just progresses. It's if you've been sitting in a doctor's office and heard some version of these words, I want you to know something, that you're not alone. I hear this so often. And I wanted to share some of our patient stories today. 3 people that I'm going to share their stories heard the exact same thing and decided to keep going and not accept it. So Beth, John, and Anna. These are 3 of our patients, 3 different stories, 3 different reasons why they ended up here at Acupuncture and Wellness of Pensacola. And also positively 3 recoveries that their previous doctors said were impossible. I'm Dr. Rebecca Gibbons, and in episode 6 of this Neuropathy series, I'm going to share with you my patient stories, because sometimes the most powerful thing I can tell you isn't a scientific study or research or treatment protocol. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, but it's the real truth with what's behind that's possible through the lives of real people who went through this. I hear it all too often, and it's so frustrating because there are other options besides medications or just living with it. So the reality of peripheral neuropathy in America, there's over 20 million Americans who are living with it right now. And that's the ones that are just have reported. So 30 to 40% of cancer patients treated with chemotherapy develop neuropathy. And the vast majority are told medication is their only option. So about 75% of our current patients at AWP came to us after being told that there's nothing else that can be done. So these numbers are pretty staggering, right? But behind every one of these statistics is a person. Someone who is burning, tingling, numb, afraid of falling, unable to sleep, unable to drive, unable to live their life the way they want to, and most importantly, afraid to lose their independence. Someone who deserves better than just manage it or just live with it. So Beth, John, and Anna were 3 of those people, and let me tell you their stories. Beth came in, she fought cancer, and she won. She is in remission, and she will be the first to tell you how grateful she is for that. But winning that battle came with a cost that nobody fully prepared her for, because while the chemotherapy was doing its job, it's killing the cancer cells, but it's also a neurotoxin, and it was also damaging other cells. So chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, or we call it CIPN, it affects between 30 to 40% of cancer patients who undergo chemo. And it is one of the most underaddressed consequences of cancer treatment in medicine. Here's how Beth described it, what it felt like. She said, "My feet and hands were constantly burning and tingling, a tingling sensation almost like when your leg or arm falls asleep. Standing for any length of time wasn't just uncomfortable, it was agony." Her busy schedule, the active life she had fought so hard to get back, it was going away. One of the simplest pleasures in Pensacola, walking on the beach, was completely out of reach. So Beth went to her doctor. She was prescribed gabapentin, and she was told in those exact words that there is no treatment for neuropathy, that this was simply the price of surviving cancer, taking chemotherapy. I want to say something directly about that because I feel strongly about it. Beth survived cancer. She went through one of the hardest things a human being can ever go through, and she deserved to come out the other side and actually live and enjoy life. Not just manage it, not cope, but live. She found us, she started our treatment program, and within just about 4 weeks, there was something that shifted. So she said, "I've taken the handicap card off of my rear view mirror, and I'm finally getting back to walking on the beach. I can't wait to see how the end of the program feels." So 4 weeks, the handicap sticker came off the mirror. She's back on the beach. And then she said something to me that has really stayed with me. So she said, "I used to think that this pain was just the price I have to pay for getting older. Dr. Gibbons has really given me hope for a better life. Pain is not the price of getting older. Pain is not the price of surviving cancer. And if anyone has ever told you otherwise, I want Beth's story to be your evidence that there's other options. You just don't have to live with it. So John is our next story. And it just starts, he was driving on a Tuesday afternoon. He and his wife were running errands, nothing unusual. And he was heading to the grocery store, talking about what was on his list. The kind of afternoon most of us done 100 times, right? You just got to go here, there. So the ahead of him started to slow down right at a yellow light. John moved his foot from the gas to the brake, except his foot didn't respond the way it was supposed to. He said that he couldn't feel his foot. The car kept moving forward and that he just couldn't get his foot on the brake fast enough and crash. And it finally came to stop when he hit the car in front of him. No one was hurt, but John was shaken, and not just from the impact, because this wasn't a freak moment. This was an inevitable consequence of something that had for years. So John had been living with peripheral neuropathy, the burning, the tingling, the sharp pains in his feet. Those were the first symptoms. And then for so long, that pain had eventually given to numbness. Sometimes that's a relief, but he literally could not the pedal below his foot. So the progression of neuropathy patients don't know about is typically the first stage is pain. You feel burning, tingling, sharp pains like you're walking on marbles. This pain eventually subsides and the numbness sets in. And unfortunately, the numbness brings with it a whole host of problems. So you have loss of balance, loss of spatial awareness. And in John's case, loss of the ability to safely operate a vehicle, which again takes away from your independence. Quietly gets taken away, right? His wife had to drive him around everywhere. The simple pleasures of taking her out to dinner, his treat, his idea, his drive was gone. Those nice Highway 98, windows down, going along the beach. The specialist had told him same thing, that pills for the pain and nothing more. So he was skeptical. I'll be the first to admit that. He told me, I can't lie. I was skeptical at first, but I had run out of options. Nothing else was helping. And I respect that honestly, and I hear it all the time. Like, how are needles supposed to help? But by the time that most neuropathy patients, they've tried everything. They have been told things that weren't true. Why would this be different? So here's why it's different for John, because we weren't managing his pain. We were targeting the nerve tissue directly and improving circulation, stimulating nerve repair, giving his nervous system what it actually needed to recover. So 4 months into the program, John drove himself to Publix. He drove himself to his own appointments, and he said something that I will always remember. And he said, "You gave me my life back." His life, not a slightly better version of the life he had been living, the one where he's behind the wheel, he's able to take his wife out to dinner, run to Publix or Aldi's and have an afternoon trip, just wherever with the guys to go out to lunch. So those little things that a lot of us that don't suffer from peripheral neuropathy, we don't even have to think about it. But people that are suffering from peripheral neuropathy, it's a constant struggle. So I'm going to tell you about Anna. And Anna came to us describing something that stopped me when I first heard it. She hadn't worn socks in 5 years. She was wearing shoes 2 sizes too big, not because she liked the style, of course, but because the sensation of anything touching her feet was unbearable. The weight of a sock, the pressure of a shoe that fit correctly, intolerable. She described what walking felt like in words I've never forgotten. The way that I would describe it is that it's equivalent to walking on glass. Can you imagine every day walking on every step? Opening a door was painful. Using the bathroom was painful. Getting out of bed in the morning, a simple act that most of us don't even think about, was overwhelming. So her doctor told her that there was nothing they could do. She would need to take gabapentin. and Cymbalta for the rest of her life. And then he asked her to accept that as her future, because those are just the only tools that he had to give her. Anna asked a question that I think about often. She said, how can you live the next 30 years when you don't even want to get out of bed to do simple things? That question is exactly why I built this practice, because there are over 20 million Americans right now asking some version of that same question. They lie awake at night, not able to sleep because they're uncomfortable. They're walking around trying to get rid of the sensation. And they're even afraid to walk across uneven surfaces. So they plan their day around what their pain will allow. So Anna started our neuropathy program, and the person who had been wearing shoes 2 sizes too big and no socks for 5 years, that person was not who walked out after 4 months. She said, now, when I go to bed at night, I don't have those shooting pains. I don't have the burning sensation. I don't have the pain coming from my legs. I can wear socks and shoes. I know that that might sound small if you've never had neuropathy, but if you're watching this video, if you've been living with burning feet and sleepless nights and shoes that have been way too big, just all these things that start to add up and take away from quality of life. So stop there. She and her sister now run a dog walking business together. Some days they cover up to 5 miles. She could barely walk 5 steps before. So I love to share these stories with you because they're real. So there's Beth, John, cancer survivor who couldn't walk on the beach, a man who couldn't feel his own brake pedal, and a woman who hadn't worn socks in 5 years. So every single one of them was told that there was nothing that could be done. And each of them was told, here's a prescription, and sent home. And every single one of them at some point made a decision not to accept that answer. The decision is the thing that they all have in common, not their diagnosis, not their age, not even their symptoms. The decision to try something different, to make a phone call and keep doing the research. So if you are sitting where they were, if any part of their before sounded familiar to you, I want you to hear this clearly. Their recovery is not just a miracle. It was not luck. It was biology applied consistently and directly and correctly. And about 75% of our current patients come to us suffering from the same conditions. And they're in constant pain from neuropathy, and it prevents them from not only living their lives, but more importantly, from enjoying them. So we are in business of making your golden years golden. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to these stories. If you would like to find out whether our neuropathy program is a right fit for you and you're in the Pensacola or Southwest Alabama area, we'd love to hear from you. You can give us a call at 850-530-1028. You just call, my assistant will set you up with a consultation with me, and you and I will sit down together and we'll go through your health history and your symptoms, and we'll perform a neurological assessment. After that conversation, I'll give you my honest assessment, whether I think you're a good candidate, how many treatments I think I'd recommend for you, and what a realistic timeline looks like for your situation in order for us to see recovery. And then if you decide you want to move forward, we can start treating the same day. So you can learn more about us at awpensacola.com. I will be back with another episode, episode 7. Make sure you subscribe or hit the subscribe button, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day.